In the past few weeks, I've heard a lot of talk about No Man's Sky, and I'm sure you have too. Now, what struck me is that these reviews and discussions all seem to be covering what to my mind are the wrong things. This critique is meant to analyze the major problems with No Man's Sky. The game of No Man's Sky, not the hype. The mechanics, and not just the controversy. So let's get started. Here is where No Man's Sky's biggest and most glaring issues lie. How does the game feel? In a word, padded. That sounds like a ludicrous comment, doesn't it? How can a game so large be padded? Well, the answer lies in the basic gameplay loop. This is a game where it is clear that the tech behind it was conceived of first. I truly believe that the concept this game was built on was the procedural tech first and the gameplay a very distant second. It is all super clear from the moment you start the game that the survival mechanics you're going to be engaging in are so shallow as to be practically ancillary. Now, in most survival games like Rust and DayZ, or my current favorite, Subnautica, the crafting system in the game is meant to expand your options and broaden your set of tools. In Subnautica, for instance, this can range from crafting a simple knife, which allows you to collect plant specimens and give some defensive options, up to a submarine, which increases your effective range of exploration. There are tons of other things in between, mind you, but the point is, the game's crafting system keeps giving you new ways to play, new tools and new toys, and new choices in how to tackle any given problem. In No Man's Sky, you have every tool you're ever going to get right at the start. You have your mining laser, whose functionality stays the same throughout the entirety of the game. You have your ship, which is also the same, and the jetpack on your suit. That's it for your tools. Your ship takes you from A to B, your jetpack lets you jump higher, and your laser breaks things down whenever you get wherever the hell it is you're going. So nearly every single crafting recipe you can and will get in the game does nothing but tweak stats on these three items, and that is it. No new tools, nothing to broaden the spectrum of choices that you have or that you get to make as the player, nothing. Just a faster laser, or one that takes longer to overheat, and so on. The crafting system is the backbone of a survival game, and you may be thinking, wow, this is bad enough. The crafting system being so padded is bad enough, but just like the slap chop, just wait, there's more. The game's actual resource gathering systems are padded too. And no, surely not, you say. That would be a ridiculous and terribly cynical setup, but here it goes. When you start the game, you're introduced to the functionality of your basic mining laser. You aim it at deposit, it breaks them down. Simple enough, right? It moves the items into your inventory. The problem with this is threefold, though. The process of shooting the material to break it down takes agonizingly long, especially in the beginning. I counted. It takes 8 seconds or longer if you allow your laser to overheat just to mine a single iron deposit. The game requires you to suck up several of these right away in the beginning in order to repair your broken ship. That means that a significant portion of your time in this game is spent quite literally staring at something and holding left click or right trigger. There's no reason the breakdown of resources could not happen much faster, except to pad the experience out. This buffer zone, this padding out of actions, is even visible in the menu system. But if this simple action only took 1 second instead of, say, the 8+ seconds I mentioned, the time you'd spend on each planet could and would be radically reduced. This problem is only exacerbated when it comes to the giant resource deposits. These resource deposits just unnaturally jut out from the ground like massive obelisks on every planet, and these can take close to 5 minutes just to mine a single one. It is a constant process of shooting these deposits from top to bottom or bottom to top, waiting on your gun to overheat, top to bottom again, and repeating ad nauseum until you finally have absorbed the whole thing, by which point the next barrier to your enjoyment rears its ugly head: your suit's life support and hazard protection. Now, for the life of me, I do not understand why these are two separate bars, except for to make you hunt two different resources to top them off, but even that would not be so big a deal if these two bars did not empty so quickly. When you factor in these two, as well as the energy for your mining laser, your ship's thrusters and pulse engine, more than half of your inventory, which is very limited in size in the beginning I might add, has to be taken up by resources strictly for refilling these bars. Now, the bars themselves aren't a problem, because nearly every survival game has them, and the problem in this case is the way they are implemented. They are, like most other things in the game, designed to force you to mine resources. The thing is, this does not incentivize exploration, it hinders it, because you spend so much time hunting for plutonium and thamium and resources you already know you need and have already seen, that you don't get as much time hunting for the ones that are optional, that maybe you don't know you need, or that you need for some sort of crafting upgrade for your gear. And on top of this, these bars make you very cautious about wandering too far from your ship, because if you do go too far, you could very well end up in a pocket of the planet that does not have one of the resources you require to fill these systems, and you will die. You will be sent back to the last time you exited your ship, negating all the spoils of your previous expedition, no matter how long or how fruitful. And finally, let's talk about the other major example of this padding in action, the combat. And yes, the word combat is inside 16 quotation marks. It is clear that this system was added in a desperate attempt to try and vary up the gameplay, but the problem is that all it does is add another half-baked system, occluding another half-baked system, preventing you from doing the exploring the game was meant to encourage. This is so frustrating because it shows a lack of understanding on behalf of the developers when it comes to developing meaningful gameplay. You're trying to explore, but need to mine in order to be able to continue exploring. But by mining, you are drawing the ire of the Sentinels, a robotic system of pests whose only discernible impact on the gameplay is to harass and annoy. The combat does not offer any meaningful challenge, as it takes so long for these robots to even break through your shield that standing still and holding left click on them is only not a viable option for the very largest and most fearsome of them. By and large, though, they serve as nothing but a temporary annoyance, a fly to swat while you continue engaging in the flaccid resource gathering of the game. So at the end of the day, the game plays like an absolute chore. It is clear by the lack of depth and meaningful options that the gameplay was created in service to their procedural generation and not the other way around. Now, speaking of procedural generation, let's talk about how this game is not nearly as impressive as the devs would like you to think it is. Procedural generation is simply the act of using math to create something automatically. This game uses procedural generation across the board for everything from the creation of its planets to the creation of its creatures. Procedural generation has been being done pretty much since games have been made. There was even a game that did almost the exact same thing as No Man's Sky before, all the way back in 1993. Now, the technique No Man's Sky uses to make its planets is pretty simple, actually. They use an algorithm that generates what is called Perlin noise. You can think of this kind of like pattern static, and it looks a lot like this. Now, this Perlin noise has a ton of applications. The way it's used in No Man's Sky is really simple, though. Imagine that these images of Perlin noise you are looking at are instead a topographical map, and you pretty much get the gist of how the planets in No Man's Sky are made. Say the lightest spots are the highest elevation, and the darkest ones the lowest, and there you have it. Each planet has its own seed, or number that gets plugged into this noise-making equation, and then each planet generates a different outcome, which makes them appear different on the surface. Did I ruin the magic already? I'm sorry, but the system used to make the creatures is even more basic. Let's just imagine that the creators of No Man's Sky made 50 different creatures, say. And then let's imagine that they broke those creatures up and ended up with 50 different kinds of legs, 50 different kinds of arms, 50 different heads, 50 different torsos, 50 different textures, and 50 different color palettes. Now, on the surface, that looks like just 50 different creatures, but they can spin it in such a way as when they break it up, it's 50 times 50 times 50 times so on, different number combinations of creatures, which ends up in the hundreds of millions. So what initially would have just been 50 creatures becomes, for marketing purposes, hundreds of millions of kinds of creatures. And these are not so much procedurally generated animals as they are procedurally generated Frankenstein's monsters. They're put together piecemeal by a random number generator with no guarantee of artistic cohesion. Now, you may think after all this I have some sort of axe to grind with procedural generation as a whole, and in truth, I really don't. The problem with procedural generation is the same now as it has always been, and it's that massive amounts of content placed by a math equation are still nowhere near as interesting as a fraction of that amount of content handcrafted by a skilled developer. There are so few handcrafted elements in this game that you will start seeing them repeat themselves within moments of starting. All the buildings look very similar. They're either empty or staffed one at a time by the exact same type of aliens over and over and over. I even had one moment where I saw something in the game more than 20 hours in, and I thought, wow, I finally found something unique. And when I left that planet, I jumped 3 systems away because that's how much fuel I had in my hyperdrive, and I landed on a completely different planet. Like I said, multiple systems away. The first place I go to, the first building I land by, I entered this building and it is the exact same thing. Oh, but this time it's colored green. And that's the problem with this game's universe in a nutshell. Automatically placed elements coupled with rules to keep the game from breaking make for a universe where the truly crazy things, the exceptional, the unique, the interesting things, they cannot exist, and when they do, they're so few and far between that it's hard to say whether they're really even there at all. And I don't want to sound like I'm picking on the people that do enjoy this game, or that I'm saying that this game has no merits at all, because it does have some. But when you take the unsatisfying and padded mechanics, combine it with the not so impressive procedural generation, and subtract all of the broken promises, the end result is what is for me, and for a lot of others, a truly disappointing mess. I cannot speak to the intentions of the developers, and I'm not here to talk about the controversy surrounding this game, because really and truly, I don't have to. The reason that this game is not a good game does not come from the hype or the marketing. It does not come from controversies or Reddit posts. The real reason comes from the very core of the game itself. And with that, I really want to thank all of you for watching if you made it all the way through to the end, and thank you for making it through all of my massive amounts of negativity. Now, my next video is going to be a review and analysis of the early access build of Subnautica, and in that you will definitely see a lot more positivity coming from me. I hope you'll stick around for that, and thank you for watching.